Welcome, Junkies. We're excited to share this next podcast with you. We had the opportunity to talk with Covy Jones and Rusty Robinson with the Division of Wildlife Resources here in Utah. And we wanted to get a hunting story from them. You know, everybody talks to them about their wildlife biologist roles that they play, and we just wanted to get a good story. And we caught wind that Covy had a pretty good elk story, and so we hit him up, and he was more than gracious to have us come talk to him. So it was pretty fun. I think you guys will enjoy this podcast for sure. I know Lance and I did.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
I think we laughed.
We laughed a lot
in this podcast than we have in any other one so far. And those guys, I mean, their enthusiasm for hunting in general is just, it's contagious. And I thought, you know, I could have just sat there and talked for hours to them about everything under the sun. So.
Yeah, we talked about, we really need to do another podcast with them nearer in the future, because we just had a lot of fun.
It was great.
They had so much to share with us. So
no, I really appreciate them and taking their time away from their families to come talk with us and share their experiences with everybody on the podcast today.
Yeah, and I think the listeners are going to gain a lot from this one. I know I did.
Yeah.
Because not only did we get their stories, but they shared kind of their biologist perspective on things, and it was really informative.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think it'll be a great one. I'm excited to share with you. So let's get to it.
All right, welcome everyone. This is Lance Garner. We're here at the Central Division of Wildlife Resources facility. We're joined today, our guest is Covy Jones. He's the DWR Big Game Coordinator. And we've also here with Rusty Robinson. He's the Central Region Manager. And we're really excited to have these two guys with us today. Great facility. And we're going to be talking a lot about elk hunting. Usually I imagine these guys are thinking we're going to ping them a lot about operations and the DWR.
Where do we hunt next?
Yeah, where do we hunt? Where should we go? Tell me exactly where the bull's going to be. But no, we want to hear these guys' stories. That's something that we recognize, is that they're hunters as well. So welcome, guys.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for letting us come on. We're excited about this.
Yeah, we're excited too. I've got to say, though, so we were following our GPS map here, and it took us off the freeway, and we got to the bridge.
The bridge was closed.
Oh, yeah. Bridge was closed, so we had to take this detour, and it took us right past the sewer plant, and my gosh.
I don't know.
I couldn't breathe for about a mile.
Rolling all the windows down, and nose hairs get burned.
Yeah. Now, is this a new facility? Because it looks pretty new to me, but
it is. Been here a couple years, I think. We used to have. We had an old. I think it took a little while longer to build it because they had to clean up all the asbestos from the previous building.
Nice.
It was that old, but it's been here a couple years, and it's great to have it. We've got big conference room we can hold our rack meetings in now, and it's been nice.
It's way different than when I worked here. We used to work out of an old federal fish hatchery, honestly, that I think was built like in the 50s or 60s, man.
Wow.
Nice.
Old brick building.
Yeah.
So it's like half brick, half like 80s wood paneling. So that's kind of nice.
They built this just
the
for you,
dark
Rusty.
wood paneling.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you get a woodpecker making a hole in the top of the building.
Yeah.
He's trying to find his previous home.
Yeah, seriously.
By the way, you guys really ought to have your own podcast, because the Rusty Covy show, that's just like, you guys got awesome names. Seriously, I'm thinking the Dave and Lance show doesn't sound as good, but you guys got some sweet names, so maybe you ought to start your own podcast and be popular.
Probably be more lucrative than working for the state.
Yeah. Well, so we were chatting here before the podcast started. We were just talking about some of your stories, and we thought we might just kind of let you run with it, Covy. You were telling us about a story, and I think the two of you are together. So
yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited to tell this one, actually. So
I'm excited to correct you every time you make something up or leave out a detail.
It's going to be accurate down to the amazing end. But so
minus some small details, maybe.
So Rusty and I have been hunting together for 4 or 5 years now. We met, we both worked in the Salt Lake office, and we've had some great hunting adventures, but none probably, especially for me, none pushed me so hard as this last one. And so last year I found out I drew an archery elk tag on the Manti. Great big unit in the center of the state.
Unit. Yeah.
Yeah, the largest elk population in the state. Population objective of 12,000 elk. Quality-wise, the Manti's managed for 5.5 to 6-year-old bull, which is good.
Yeah.
It's good quality, good elk, a lot of elk. And one of the first people I called, I think, was Rusty. In fact, I know it was. Called Rusty, called Riley, called Dax, called a few of my buddies. I was like, "Hey, we're on for archery this fall. Block your calendars." In fact, I need to add my hunts to our hunting calendar. We have a hunting calendar that we maintain to know who has what, so that we can help each other.
That's way
nice.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. So we Manti elk tag. Good unit.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, I said, "All right, what's my goal? Like, what would I consider a successful hunt?" And I decided, okay, I want to kill a mature 6-point bull.
Right.
That's where my sights are. Mature 6-point bull with the archery. It's an early year. This is going to be tough.
Yeah.
But if I can do that, I'm going to be happy. So we started out, and I grew up in Castledale. I don't know if anybody knows where that is.
Yeah, I do.
God's country over there.
So you probably know Nate Richards.
The name's really familiar.
Yeah, he's down there.
Yeah, most beautiful place on earth. If you've never been to Castledale,
it's sexy down there.
you're missing out.
How many trailers you got?
Depends on your definition.
I
can say that because I lived in Huntington for a couple of years.
Yeah, Huntington's not nearly as good as Castledale. I mean, it's all Emory County. Yeah. So growing up down there, like my parents were both educators. My dad was a principal, my mom was a teacher, and they kept saying, go to school. And I said, well, I just want to hunt.
Yeah.
I just want to hunt and fish and mostly hunt. So I started over on an area that I used to hunt growing up, over on Castle Valley Ridge, on the east side of the Manti. Man, it was dry. And I was seeing elk. We were finding elk every day. But I hunted there the first 4 days and nothing. Nothing that I was willing to. I put a stock on a couple.
Put the time in for.
Yeah, I put a stock on a couple animals just to practice, just to say, all right, I'm going to break into this. I'm going to see if I can. But I wasn't willing to draw. Right, it wasn't something that it didn't meet my expectations for the hunt.
Yeah,
sure.
Put in a couple stocks over there, and Rusty was busy the first couple days of the hunt, but he showed up on day 3.
I think so. Yeah.
Day 3, we went out, and it just wasn't. I was a little discouraged. I said, it's early, it's hot. It was over 90 degrees every day.
We both knew the area. We both hunted in the past, had a good experience. It was just so hot and dry, and the cows were sitting on water, on all the water. Cows were sitting on all the water, and it was just tough.
Yeah, and they just moved them in there about a week before. That's nobody's fault.
Yeah, no.
They have a right to the mountain too.
Yep. Sure.
We just it just wasn't working for us. So we said, all right, we're going to move. I said, I'm going to go home for a couple days, relax, unwind,
reset,
and then we'll hit this again. We got a long season. I don't want to get burned out.
So then Covy finally listened to me and went to my spot. Got a little better from there.
So we had a couple other spots we wanted to check out on North Skyline.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So we go up off North Skyline, and the first day, boom, we're in the quality of bulls that I'm willing to chase. And I had a couple glassers. Nothing was vocal yet. Everything was still really quiet. And so I had a couple guys glassing for me, and they sent me down off the hill. This place was hell. Like, I don't know how else to describe it.
I was just thinking of the day that we were like, what is taking you so long? You've got to get there.
My gosh. So I'd hear Rusty on the radio, and he'd be yelling, Kokomo, Kokomo, which means get there fast and then take it slow. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going as Kokomo as I can. So
that's our elk slogan.
It's legit 1,000-foot drop and then about a 700-foot gain where we were hunting.
Yeah.
Right. So we get up, first light, see what we had, and then it was go. Right.
Yeah.
Nothing was vocal at all, and a couple times I was in elk every day. So. I mean, I'll tell a little bit of the end of the story right now. I hunted a total of 16 days.
Wow.
On day 15, and I'll get into this a little more, but I completely broke down. I found out my limit of hunting is 15 days.
15 days is it.
That's when you had the emotional dump.
Yeah, 15 days is when I start crying to love songs.
He was crying to love songs on 13, I think.
Yeah. But there's only so much you can put your body through, and so every day here we were seeing elk, and it was all right. Jump off, boom, 1,000 feet, back up 700. I'm on them, and then it's the wind game. You know, one of my buddies, Dax Mangus, who's not here right now, but he'll always say, elk they'll hear you 3 times, they'll see you twice, but they're only going to smell you once before they're gone.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's the truth.
That's elk hunting.
Yeah.
And you get these thermals, and you think you got the wind right, and the wind's blowing down, and you get up, and all of a sudden it shifts, boom, and you're just like, son of a gun.
Yeah,
you hear a cow bark, or you hear, and they're just gone.
And that's where you start to get helpless as a spotter, because you don't know what the wind is doing over where your guy is. And so at that point, you can do your best to let him know where you think he should be set up, but it could be the total opposite place he really should be.
Oh, absolutely. And really, this time of year, you've got 2 options for hunting elk. One, you sit water, or 2, it's all visual, completely spot and stock. And my style, my preferred method of hunting, I don't like to sit water. I'll do it if I have to, but it's not what I like to do.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why I like hunting elk. Because with elk, you get this opportunity to be super aggressive, right?
Sure.
Well, I think that's the attraction for a lot of us for elk hunting, is that rut, right? The bugling and trying to get close to them. And it's just sitting on water is hard, I think, for a lot of us.
Yeah, and or it's just like, let's go, man, let's get this done.
Yeah.
So we're in there, we're hunting a couple days in this spot, and pretty soon I'm on. He was definitely the best bull we saw the whole time. I don't want to throw a number out, but he was at least 350.
He was 350 plus, and he was full velvet, which was
cool
bonus.
Yeah, he was a neat bull. And I get over there, and it's where are you? And I'm like, I got this. I'm close, and I'm moving in on him, and I hit it. I hit 20 yards. I'm 20 yards from an elk the size of a Volkswagen, right?
Yeah.
And he's the bull. He's the one. He's got some satellite bulls with him, no cows yet, and this is perfect. So I'm kind of teetering as I'm looking at this shot, and I range a tree next to him because I can't range him through a bush. I've got to step out. So I range the tree, and the tree says 30 yards. And in my mind, I was like, okay, he's 30.
Yeah.
And then there was a little bit of vegetation down low. It was just a shrub, and it was close. And I got elk fever, man. So I saw that shrub. I saw that bull. I'm right there. I'm 20 yards. I think I'm 30.
Yeah.
I draw back, and I'm like, I got this. I got this all day long. I feel more comfortable with this bow that I'm shooting right now than I ever have with any bow.
Right.
And draw back, put the pin on 30, and right over his back.
Oh, shoot.
I mean, I'm
which is hard to do. Even if you do the wrong pin at 20.
You're hitting a little high.
I think what happened, because he didn't know what happened. He said, get over here. I shot. It felt good, whatever. So we run over, and we start looking at it. And Covy's like, yeah, he was right here. I think he was... I think it was 25-35 or something, but
yeah.
And we're looking, like, I don't see any tracks right here, and so we start following. I start finding tracks and following in this little trail. And I'm like, okay, he was standing right here when you shot, and we range it, and it was a lot
closer than what the tree was.
But
really,
we started looking at it, and there's some vegetation, and I think, and I've done this too, where you've got vegetation covering half the body. And so you start to subconsciously go higher than you should.
Yeah.
And so I think it was the combination of the ranging and the subconscious.
Don't want to hit the
high.
bushes.
Yeah. And it just right over
Any
the
chance you did hit the bush, twig, or anything? Ricochet
no, I didn't hit anything. We found my arrow right over his back, right in the trajectory, buried in a log.
Yeah.
So no blood, nothing.
That was the smacky herd that he thought was the elk. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Rusty's right. Like, and if I would have just taken a second, I would never recommend shooting through a bush if it's 10 yards in front of you. If it's 2 yards in front of the animal,
right,
shoot through the bush. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna slam right through it. But if I would have slowed down and said, okay, his back's high, vitals are here, I got excited.
Yeah.
Like anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell everybody this, when I'm hunting with a rifle, I get really bad buck fever. I get fired up because as soon as you see that, 300 yards, whatever, they're in kill range, and you get super excited really fast. But I think bow hunting, by the time you actually get where you're actually in a killable position, you've already done 12 stalks. They've all failed. The wind was wrong. Something happened, and so by the time you actually get a shot with archery, I'm calm as a cucumber because I feel like it's probably not going to work out anyway, right?
It hasn't so far.
Yeah, and I'm totally calm. But I think when you do get a shot that first day, your second day, those nerves are still there, and you're still amped up. But.
Yeah, and I wasn't cucumber, not at all. Like, I just sat down.
You were cactus.
The world spun around me. And anyway, but we kept hunting this area, and then the sheep moved in. When the sheep moved in, the elk moved out.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, new area, boom. Stayed pretty close, stayed on that north end of Skyline Drive.
You better stop giving out info on my hunting spots.
That's a big area north of there.
Still, you better not give any more details than that.
Well, at the end of the day, if you can't find elk in every canyon on the Manti, you're probably not looking very hard. There's elk all across the Manti, and you're going to find some areas a little more bull heavy. Mm-hmm. You're going to find areas where you're just seeing cows,
and you will see a redistribution of elk. This is a little bit off topic, but when you get a burn, I think with deer, that only affects the deer that usually live within that burn.
Okay,
they just kind of stick to their old home range. For elk, they will seek out that burn. They'll find the burn, and they will redistribute
into that burn,
the burn, and have a totally different home range that summer. Cool. And so you'll have canyons that you hunt 20 years. There's always elk in it. There's always elk in it. And then a mile away, you get a burn, and then all of a sudden, there's no elk in your canyon anymore. And it's just because they got up and moved. They found a better spot.
How long does it usually take? So if there's a burn this year, is it next year that they usually start moving in? Or
I think it depends. So I hunted the Manti in 2012, that year that it burned.
Big time, yeah.
Yeah, it burned in like July, something like that, June, July.
That was at Sealy Fire?
Mm-hmm, the Sealy Fire. And then in October, I was hunting in the black face of the moon burn with little tiny green stuff popping up.
Yeah.
There was elk all over it.
Really?
So it was, what is that? August, September, 3 months later.
3 months and they're in there.
But you need a little bit of precipitation to get it
coming
back.
Yeah.
You get green up, they'll move in.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Wow.
And I guess everybody knows we're biologists, right? So this is the geeky, dorky part. We love hunting. Yeah. We do. And we get geeked out by the biology aspect of it too.
And even low elevation, right? So mule deer, if you get a low elevation burn, that's typically not good because you're burning up the browse, the sagebrush, the bitterbrush, all that stuff that they depend on in the winter. But if it's an elk winter range and it burns, they only use it more. It seems like as soon as that, because they're more grazers, they eat more grass, and that grass is the first stuff that comes back, and they're all over it. In fact, you'll find canyons. And hopefully I'm not giving away my shed hunting secrets either, but you'll find canyons that
we'll be bleeping this whole thing out.
Okay, perfect. So there'll be canyons that elk traditionally don't winter in, but then you get a burn, and it may be a year, 2 years later, and they'll start wintering. They'll find it and they'll start wintering in it.
Wow.
And you'll go in there and you'll pick up sheds, and there's literally no old elk sign. It's all that year, and they just decided they're going to start using that canyon now.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't know they moved in that much, or that they were that aggressive about it. So that's cool.
Yeah, I always think about deer as being more equitably distributed across the landscape, right? They're pretty ubiquitous. And elk will move, so you'll be in elk or out of elk, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But
they're more economic. They'll find the best spot and utilize it,
or the least disturbance and utilize it.
Yeah.
So we're in elk there. Sheep come in, they get disturbed, they don't like them, they move out. We go to a new spot.
And that tips on your on the site too. If there's sheep in the canyon, go to the next one.
Yeah,
it can be. Yeah, I mean, I've seen them stay, I've seen them leave.
Yeah.
But this, they definitely moved out. Yeah. So it just didn't work for us. So we went to a new one. On elk again the very next night. It was the next night that we tried it. So we're on elk again, put in a stock, doesn't work out. Next day, we come in early in the morning.
This is day 16?
No, this is like day 12 or
Something like
7,
that.
8.
I don't know where we are now.
It all got blurred at that
But
point.
dude, this is where we hike down by the pond, and then we're off. I mean, this is legit the steepest place ever. Again, Rusty on the radio yelling, "Run at him! Run at him!" We have 2 bulls. The little one.
I did tell you to run at him. That was funny.
The little one was a 350 bull, and the big one was, oh geez,
It was the little one won the fight. Was the crazy part.
because he was uphill.
Yeah. So we're sitting up on the ridge, and we hear bugling, right? So we send Covy.
They're starting to get a little vocal now. You know, we're into September. They're a little vocal now.
Sure.
So we send Covy down the canyon, and then these bulls all of a sudden they come out, and it was game time, and they were fighting like I've never seen bulls fight before, and so they're just going crazy, and they're running circles and.
So I'm watching
them
them.
down, and I'm getting on the radio. Covy, run at him!
He's like, they're not paying attention to you. Run at him. So this place was, again, it was over 1,000-foot drop.
Yeah.
And then it was probably 400 or 500 feet back
Yeah.
up to them. It was so steep, I couldn't walk down it. Like, it was a controlled fall. Like, there were twice that I went end over end as I'm trying to get down.
hold your bow.
Yeah, legit.
So yeah, the next day I hiked down there, and I was like, "Oh, this is why you weren't running."
He's yelling at me, "Run at him, run at him!" And I'm trying really hard to maintain composure and be like, he's just trying to help.
He's just doing his part. He's doing his part.
But it ended the smaller bull, which is like a 330 bull, threw the bigger one down the hill, and it was
End over end. He rolled, and I'm sitting there watching this bull. I've never seen this. End over end down the hill. And I'm like, well, he's dead. I just got to go stick him now. Little bull made this easy.
Yeah.
And he stood right back up, man. It was pretty impressive.
That's cool. Yeah.
Stands up, comes down to the bottom. Everything's lining up. This bull is coming to me. I've got a clearing. I'm sitting there in the clearing, and I'm just waiting. I can hear them coming down through. They come down through the bottom, come up the other side. Wind shifts, boom. And they're gone.
Oh,
He's gone.
shoot.
He's gone. No shot. Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, that wind is brutal. It just is.
Mhm.
As soon as you think you've got it, and this is your chance right here, that wind shifts or
It-
thermal shift.
Totally.
Yep.
It'll mess you up. Hunt there a couple more days. Had a couple more good stalks.
It was still kind of often. You get that first wave of the rut, or at least the first wave of bugling right around. Is it Labor Day?
Yeah, right around Labor Day, you get kind of a first.
And it seems like maybe one cow comes into estrus or something, and they just go crazy. And then they go, okay, we gotta
Hold on a
calm
second.
down a minute. It's just
That was just Bessie over there.
Yeah.
So in my experience, it seems like you almost always get that, where you get that first wave, and then you have a lull, and then it picks back up when it's really the rut. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we keep hunting this area, and had a couple more good stalks there, but nothing panned out. Finally, I spent the night up there. Rusty showed up the next morning, and we're out hunting in a complete snowstorm. Like, I was not prepared for this. It had been 85, 90 degrees every day, and I had warm clothes. Like,
Mm-hmm. That was a weird storm. I mean,
It
it
was.
was
Oh, my
everywhere
gosh.
last fall.
And we thought, oh, maybe this will kick them into gear.
nothing.
And I always say that whenever you get that cold front.
I think we all do.
This will get them going. This will get them going. It seems like it more than often just shuts them down. I don't know what it is.
And you get wet and cold.
Yeah.
I remember we dropped off chasing a littler bull that day,
hmm
and we couldn't. We had him talking a little bit, and I was trying to pull him using a collar, like, and that's the only reason I hunt with Rusty is because he's better behind a bugle than anybody I've ever
The
met.
only reason.
The only
It's
reason.
legit.
The one and only.
No, I'm just kidding.
Good for one thing.
We have had some of the most fun, best hunting adventures ever. I love hunting with Rusty, but he is really good on a bugle. You think you're walking around with an elk or
That's
a herd
cool.
of elk.
You haven't met very many good callers if you think I'm.
I have. That's the thing. But so we've got Rusty back there, and he's set up behind me a little bit, and we're playing with this bull, but he's just not hot enough. He's just not ready yet to give us any action. We tromped around chasing him though for a couple hours, and then I remember distinctly not being able to feel my hands.
It's because it's so cold.
I remember like wearing the thin archery glove and just being so cold. They're wool, and I'm wringing them out thinking, Wool's supposed to keep you warm when it's wet. This stuff sucks. And we hit the bottom again, Rusty, to head back up the other side. Justin was with us that day too, another one of our buddies, and I'm like, hey man, I can't feel my hands anymore. And Rusty's like, me either. Keep walking.
Keep walking.
It's probably like wham. Let me call a wambulance. Issue a whamber alert.
So we head back up and hunted that evening and didn't. That was the only night I didn't find elk.
Really?
Only night of my hunt, but I didn't find elk, and I was like, all right. Come back one more day, and we hunted that next morning, Rusty. You remember that?
Is that the one bull that we got?
Yeah.
There was like one elk left in this canyon, and we called him in.
Yeah, and this is like a pretty good synopsis of what's happened. Like I'm skipping over days, probably that there wasn't a lot of action, and
Sure.
And we have one bull, and he's a raghorn. And I finally lowered my expectations a little bit.
He was that 3-year-old, barely a 6 type bull.
Yeah. He was just branching on the back.
Branching, yeah.
And I was like, okay, we can do this.
We can take him.
So we're up there, and I crawl down off the edge. We're glass, and I crawl off the edge, and I'm cow calling a little bit, and he bugles back. And Rusty's sitting up top. I radio back. I was like, dude, he's in here. Let's go. So we drop down off, and Rusty jumps back behind me again, and I'm sitting there, and we're calling him. He's coming. He's hot.
Yeah.
And it's a bugle and chuckle, then it's a little cow call, and he's interacting with us, and it's just awesome.
It was fun to watch because we dropped down. We knew if we got clear to the bottom that the wind would start going.
It was going away from us.
So we stayed just on this side of the canyon, or across the canyon from, but and it was in the shady side.
Yeah.
And we had the wind still kind of funneling down canyon. We knew if we got in the sun on the
other
same side he was on, it would be
going up.
Yeah.
So he's coming down this side. He's just working his way.
But it was also that time of evening where the wind starts breathing. You get it going one way and then the other, and so we were like, okay, we got to make this happen quick, or else we're gonna get the wind shift. And
it chugs and switches, and so we're sitting down in there, and all of a sudden I've got him at like 30 yards.
27.
Yeah, it was 20.
27.
No, it was 27 yards.
Yep.
I range him. I dial in, and I'm good to go. I'm full draw. I am standing there full draw. I literally have the side of his head right there in my shooting lane.
Yeah.
27 yards, and it's one more step. One more step, that's all I need. And the wind chugged.
Oh,
And he's gone.
Man.
oh man,
And
that stinks.
I'm like, Rusty, hey, he blew out. And
We kept him on the line a little bit. He was responding, but he wouldn't get close enough.
he didn't know what we
was,
were.
He was skirting us. I'm not sure he smelled us. I think he might have saw something, but he was skirting us for almost till dark, and he finally.
We fought him for almost 40 minutes after that.
So he's just standing behind a bush or something. Is that why you needed that extra step?
Yeah.
Yep. He was. I couldn't shoot. I didn't have a good shooting lane. I needed one more
I
step.
swear that seems to be the case more often than not. That you
They're
just need
smart.
that one step. They seem to hang up right behind that bush.
Yep. Every time.
And by this time, this is day 15, right? This is right at my
Break.
Emotional edge. You're getting 3 and 4 hours of sleep at night.
Yeah.
Every day is at least 3,000 to 4,000 feet elevation gain.
They say for every bad night of sleep you get, you lose X percentage of testosterone, right?
I was running really low T, apparently.
The estrogen starts flowing.
Dude, was it that day?
You cried that day.
Oh, I cried. Yeah.
After
that bull ran off.
that bull ran off, he was.
And I'm sitting there looking
sweating from his eyes.
I'm like, why am I crying? Like a love song came on the radio that day, and I started to cry then too. And I'm
it was like Cyndi Lauper or something. And he lost it.
What is going on? This is not me. and I'm like, all right. So we have 2 days left in the hunt, and I realized like I need a good night's sleep. I'm going home.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home, and I'm taking tomorrow morning off. 3 days left because I took the morning off. No, it was 2 days. Excuse me. I took the morning off, and then my wife was actually ready to come back and hunt with me that morning, and I just said, Ginger, I can't do this. Like, I need a break.
Yeah.
This is day 15. Like, do you understand where I am mentally? Like,
I'm crying.
It's not good for you to come down here right now.
I'm pretty tough guy. Like, I never quit, and I was on the verge of quitting.
Wow.
And I get home. I sleep in that next day. I wake up, and I walked into my wife. We have a home office. She works there from home, and I just said, hey, I'm done. I said, I can't do this. I've given it all I have. I've got 2 days left. I've got tonight and tomorrow, and I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, I think last year, to close on the 10th or the 11th last year. I don't remember. It was early.
Either. Yeah, it was early, and it was kind of during that lull where they never really got going again.
Yeah, and so I just said I'm done, and I called. I hunted with Riley, Rusty, and Dax most of the time, and I called Riley to kind of tell him I'm done, buddy. I can't do this anymore, and he gave it me we've given it your all. You've put in everything you have. And in the meantime, I didn't know this. My wife's over texting Rusty and on her phone, texting Rusty and saying, he's going to call you and he's going to quit. You're not going to let him quit.
That's a good wife.
He will regret this forever.
Yeah.
Don't you let him quit. So I called Rusty and I was like, hey, thanks for all your help, man. I think we've fought the good fight.
The funny part is I never got a chance to tell him he couldn't quit because my wife jumped in and she was like, don't be a sissy. You're not quitting.
Oh, yeah, she did.
You're going to go up there tonight. Rusty's going to go with you, and you're going to kill a bull.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay.
All right. So we had one more spot that we were going to try. We kind of worked this area to where we weren't seeing what we were seeing in there before, and we had one more spot. And I'll tell you, the Manti, second most elk tags in the state, right? Over 500 permits issued on that unit. Also a really big deer unit.
Yeah.
Issue over 8,000 deer tags, and I saw 2 other hunters the whole time.
Wow.
Like, you can be alone.
Yeah.
If you want to be alone, you can be alone. If you want to hunt where everybody else is, you can do that too.
Yeah.
But crowding is a function of effort. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah.
Deer hunting, elk hunting, whatever it is, crowding is a function of how much effort you're willing to put into it. So when I hear people are crowded, I struggle with that, and I say, well, maybe you're just hunting differently.
Yeah.
You don't want to be crowded? Don't be.
Sure.
I spent 16 days and saw one other hunter hiking out and one other deer hunter. That's it.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And
That's
never
saying something, honestly, though.
And on the unit where we issue more tags between deer and elk than any other unit in the state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So I said, all right, let's try this one last spot, man. This is the Hail Mary. This is.
We hadn't been in there the whole hunt. We knew there's elk in there.
But we'd wanted to hunt it.
Yeah,
We
hadn't been
kept
there yet.
saying, let's go hunt this area. And then we're like, oh, but
So
we're seeing elk
it's
here.
kind of a Hail Mary. We don't know where to find the elk. We don't know.
No camera set up in this area.
No. Well, that's the thing is we scouted a little bit. We had a couple trail cameras out. We
Yeah.
didn't even hunt those spots at
No,
all.
we didn't.
So
We just knew those spots weren't producing what we wanted to see.
yeah, exactly.
So we come down in and it's second to last night. We start our hike. We're off less than 3/4 of a mile to where we want to be. And I looked at Rusty. I think we saw it at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a bull. That's a bull. And he's probably 300 yards away. We've got a big flat ridge with not much cover. We got across and we start heading down there. And we're kind of out in the open. And all of a sudden, they stop. He's got a couple cows with him. I don't remember, he had 2 or 3.
I think he had four or 5 cows maybe.
Did he have that many?
But yeah, 300 was probably as close as we could get. It might have been further than that, but we couldn't get any closer. He was going to have to cross a big open spot to get to us.
We're right out in the open.
Yeah.
We got across a couple of ridges, and then we're down in a wash. And I put Rusty back. You stayed behind me maybe 100 yards.
Yeah.
And I come up on this open flat. And Rusty starts to play with him behind me to see if we can't get him a little excited.
Yeah.
See if he won't think we're coming in on
At
his
first,
cows.
he wouldn't even look.
No.
He finally looked at us, and he just went right back. Just did not care one bit.
Mm-mm.
And we just kept slow rolling him, just working and work, just cow call a little bit here, a little bit there. And then every once in a while we'd throw in a little half-hearted bugle. And it started piquing his interest a little more and a little more. And then he started responding.
Yeah.
But half-heartedly, like a kind of half chuckle.
It's not like he was coming in on a line. You
Sure.
know, there was no.
It took an hour and a half of doing that.
Oh, wow.
And he finally
starts to get a little interested.
Every time we were painting a picture for him, and he didn't like it. He didn't like that there was a little bull in there in this place where it's supposed to be only his cows. And
Wow,
and
that's impressive, honestly.
so he finally, and you couldn't get super aggressive with the bugling either. And,
No.
and it was just kind of, I'd chuckle, and then he'd chuckle, and then I'd bugle, and he wouldn't do anything, and then I'd chuckle, and he'd chuckle, but this is over. I'd go 20 minutes in between bugles. It was just a little bit of cow call and stuff, and he finally got to where he was responding more and more and more, and he finally crossed that big open spot to where he was getting to the cover and getting closer to Covy, and we were at that point we were going back and forth. Like he thought I was another bull, and I think it was that last. Didn't I like bark chuckle or something like, "Hey, let's fight"?
So I had to cross that big flat because I couldn't pull him that far. I was trying to pull him 160 yards, and it just didn't work.
Oh yeah, so he's like in the wide open behind like a little piddly juniper or something.
Dude, I found 2 trees, and I laid down, and I army crawled 80 yards.
Wow.
I closed 80 yards crawling like this.
Wow.
I know
cool.
nobody can see this, but it was impressive. So that was it. And then I'm in the perfect spot. Rusty's got him a little interested. His cows are coming down in a flat in front of me, and the flat, there's no way they can be more than 50 and less than 30. It's perfect.
Yeah.
30 to 50 yards. It's perfect. And they're coming out. I set up for 30 to 50. I'm right on ready to go and just waiting. She comes, and all of a sudden the wind again, and she barks. You know when they bark?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's like game over. She barks. He takes off and runs down through a drainage and back up.
And I heard her bark.
And then I cow called.
Yeah, and then I chuckled or something.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and he turned around.
So I cow called. Rusty chuckles, and it pissed him off. Because he thought, I've left a cow back there behind this tree, and he's coming to get her.
Yeah.
And it just worked out where he's like, now he's mad. I can see him. He's standing up above me, and he's back and forth, and he's mad. And I thought it was game over. Like, that cow call was pure desperation. It was like, I gotta turn him. I gotta stop him. And I sat there, and I was like, well, this is it. This is the shot that I get, right? This is the shot that I get. I ranged him. I set up, and he is so interested in whatever's behind this tree where I am. I had a shooting lane to range, but not to shoot. So I ranged him, and then I drew with him on range, and I checked everything, and I said, okay, what's my heart doing? That's a little fast. All right, calm down.
This is the 12th stock now where you're calm as a cucumber.
Yeah. Take a couple breaths. All right, take a couple breaths. I took a couple breaths. Am I anchored? Yeah, I'm anchored. I'm anchored right where I want to be. Okay. What's my front hand doing? Am I clenching the bow? No, I'm open, I'm loose. I feel good. And I took 2 steps back from that tree. 1, 2. I put the pin right on him, and game over.
That's cool.
Like it was perfect.
Frontal shot.
It was a frontal shot. That was the opportunity I got. Was a frontal shot,
which is a deadly shot. I think
I hit him in the carotid.
Well, it's interesting that you were able to logically think through all that at that moment, because I know from my experience, when you got a bull in front of you, your mind's going crazy, and it's hard to just relax and think logically. And even when you start to try to guess the ranges at times, you just like, oh, is that 30? Is it 40? What? You don't know what it is. But for you to be able to kind of calm down, like you said, after that many days, maybe you're finally just mad enough and had enough that
it's the estrogen setting in, and you become a better multitasker, I think.
I knew that this was my shot, and he was exactly what I wanted. He was a mature 6-point bull. He was a 5.5-year-old bull, which is what we managed for on the Manti. Beautiful, beautiful bull.
Yeah.
And when we hit him, I mean, Rusty, we went up, and what were your words? You were like, what did you say when we found the blood?
I just know I was giggling like a schoolgirl for a second, and then we found blood, and I was like, Helen Keller could follow this blood trail.
It was every 2 steps. It was the size of a dinner plate.
Wow.
And he was less than 100 yards away. I heard him expire. After the shot and waited.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to tell myself that that's what it was. I was like, okay, this is the game. We're bow hunting now. So it's wait, hold on, hold tight, and then we go follow blood.
Yeah.
And the crash we heard was him actually being done.
Wow.
So we walked
Nice.
over less than 100 yards, found the bull, and
we didn't have a lot of time to spare. It was
yeah.
by the time we got to him, it was almost dark, and then we quartered him up in the dark. And
So are you at this point, because you were pretty, like you said, you were emotional. So at this point,
yeah.
were you more emotional, or were you just like way excited?
Yes is the answer. So, I mean, I think I hugged Rusty until he was uncomfortable.
it was very uncomfortable.
Bromance.
There was a lot of "I love you, mans," and
They were one-sided.
but that's hunting, right? Like
Yeah.
you try to explain that feeling to somebody else. It's primal. It's instinctual. It's something that, look, I understand in modern society our life doesn't depend on this, but when you harvest an animal, it's as if it did.
Yeah.
There's a physiological response when you kill something. That it's adrenaline. It's pure focus. And then once it actually dies, there's this huge sense of relief and gratitude. And there's no other way to explain that other than that it's genetic. Because if it doesn't work out, you just go to McDonald's and get some chicken nuggets.
Sure.
Your life doesn't depend on it.
Right.
But your body, your DNA still thinks it does.
Yeah.
And when you can look at that, and I mean, when it hits the ground, at that point, like there's this weird feeling of my freezer's full. Okay.
Yeah.
And this gratefulness for the sacrifice of the animal and the fact that we got to spend another, Donnie Vincent, if you want to have, what does he say? Incredible experiences or amazing experiences, you got to put yourself in amazing places, and just the chance to spend another day in an amazing place and chasing wild animals in wild places and a harvest like that where, I mean, I got 248 pounds of meat from that bull.
Nice.
Yeah. That's good meat too.
What a success.
Yeah.
What a success. And I was able to give some of that to Rusty, which made up for the elk that I stole from him a couple years ago.
He stole an elk from me. Like a whole elk.
He put it in my freezer.
He said I could keep it in his freezer for a little bit. I came to get it, and it was all gone.
You ate it up.
It was delicious. There was like a couple packages left, and you said, go ahead and eat some. So
I don't think I said that because you had your own elk right above it.
But my elk was gone.
No, my elk was gone, and yours was still there. We've been fighting about this since 2015.
So did you write a letter or anything to his wife or your wife? Or?
I did. Well, I there's a video out there where I thank them both. So
Nice.
It definitely the support for you couldn't hunt if we didn't have support at home. We both have kids. We both have important things going on in our lives, and I think our families help us a lot.
And we've all been there. It's hard to balance that when you're just disappear for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 months in the fall. You've got to make sure you're mindful of what's going on at home.
Yeah. Trust me, if anybody knows, it's me. So, but
That's awesome.
And the truth is, like, you're so worn out, you're so beat up, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
It's like childbirth, I think. And I wouldn't know.
Let's hear what a man has to say about hunting like child. This is great, Rusty.
I just know that
You can't say anything now that's going to make this better.
Oh boy.
No, this is a lose-lose.
Your wife's going to
situation.
hear this,
After every child, there's this period where my wife's like, "We're never doing this again, right? That wasn't fun. Why would I do that again?" And then, like 6 months later, she's like, "Oh, I think we need another baby. Let's have another baby." And elk hunting is the same.
Oh yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You get done, you're like, or there's some hunts you don't kill anything. It's hard, and you're like, this is not even fun. Why do I do this?
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, you're like, oh, what tags should I put in for?
It's completely addictive.
It's a mental illness, probably.
It messes with your finances. I mean, there's more financial arguments between me and my wife about the tags I put in for.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I mean, she's going to hear this too, but there's always the secret account. There's the other credit card.
Yeah.
That's the Colorado, Wyoming credit card
that she doesn't know about until now.
Until now. No.
Yeah. Love you, babe. So
this sounds like a great hunt. Like you had a good time.
It really was, and it when you go through it like that, it just. I was talking a little bit about this before we came on the air about being a biologist. When we manage at a different level than we hunt at.
Yeah.
And I think, Rusty, I know you are. I know I am. I think we're hunters first. Like, we got into this. We got into wildlife management because we loved hunting.
Something you can do.
And
passion.
Yeah. And now, after managing wildlife, we see the distinction and the difference. Like, you've got to manage at a level that offers quantifiable goals and objectives, right? Mm-hmm. So I think about this like if you were a city and you were looking at your roads, you may say, well, 97% of our roads are in good repair, right? Which means and overall we're doing pretty good. We got a top coat on almost all the roads this year, and the city looks pretty darn good.
Yeah. And
then somebody says, yeah, but I live on Elm Street and Elm Street's in the 3%. There's potholes everywhere. You guys haven't been here for years. And that's wildlife, right? Yeah. So we manage at a level where we say, okay, this is the average age of harvest for elk. This is what it looks like. This is how many elk are on the unit. This is what calf production looks like. And we have all these management. This is what's coming into the population. This is what's going out of the population. And there's always somebody that hunts on Elm Street, and they say, yeah, but my hunt sucked, and here's why. And so as a hunter, I mean, I had a hunt on the South Slope 2 years ago. I hunted 6 days and saw one calf. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been to where you're just like 6 days on a rifle hunt and I see one calf. And there are literally thousands of elk on that unit. There's like 7,000 elk on the South Slope.
Wow.
Yeah, and most of us are thinking, okay, Covy, tell me exactly where that elk's going to be, what water hole at 4 p.m. on the 13th, right?
That's exactly.
Did you release it for me?
And even those poor experiences or those difficult experiences, I'd do it again because it's just
you learn from it.
It's
honestly.
just to be out there, just to have a tag in my pocket, just have a chance.
Yeah.
Well, and I can tell just from the relationship that you two have that you guys have a great time out there. Because there's so much more to hunting. Like I said, it is a lot of work. It's emotional. But, I mean, just the story you're sharing with us now, that you can tell the relationship you guys have, I mean, you can't replace that. And that's what makes hunting, I think, so much fun, right?
It is. It is. We have probably too much fun.
Do you remember the 1, 2, 3 on our cow hunt?
You mean the 1, 2 1/4?
It never works. You're supposed to apply pressure to a trigger. You're not supposed to jerk a trigger. It's not my fault that my trigger's lighter than your trigger.
We were on a cow hunt years ago, and we got into these cows, and we get proned out. We're like, okay, I've got this one on the left. You get the one on the right. We're gonna shoot on 3, and then it's like, okay, you ready? And it's like, oh wait, we're shooting on 3 or 1, 2, 3, shoot. Okay, 1, 2, 3, shoot. Okay, so then you're 1, 2, and I hear bang, like 2 1/4. This guy pulls the trigger, and Karma got him on that one.
Because I missed.
Because he missed, and then the elk were all scrambling all over, and I got one to stay still for a minute, and I didn't miss.
Sorry, buddy. Good shot.
Don't feel bad. I got mine.
Jeez.
That's the trip we made the. Is that when we made the meat satchel?
Yeah.
We were kind of ill prepared. We didn't have our packs. Didn't have.
We left
bags.
our packs there because we didn't want to carry them across the canyon.
So I took off my belt and we ran the hindquarters, ran all the quarters through my belt. I was wearing like a meat necklace. I had I had a hindquarter dangling off the front, a hindquarter dangling off the back. I don't remember how you were. I think I took my shirt off and made us like a hobo satchel where you filled it with all the backstrap and everything.
That's exactly what we did. We tied the backstraps
sleeves
up in a
together.
shirt.
Yeah.
Put it on a stick over my shoulder.
Tell me
that would have been a sight.
I was going to say, tell me you have a photo of that.
Oh, we do.
Actually, we do, yeah. It will not be shared.
Great.
Good tough.
I want to hear the story you mentioned earlier about the old cow.
Another cow hunt.
Yeah, that was a different.
Was this the Elkasm one, or was that a different one?
That's a different one.
Yeah,
It's a different one. That's when Rusty had his archery tag, and we were trying to call those bulls from that area that we couldn't go to.
Yeah, we were trying to call them off private. There's no bugling going on in public whatsoever, and
they were screaming their faces off like 200 yards away.
So yeah, we've been the guys that are on the public side of the fence, just hoping for a miracle, and that didn't work out. Huh?
Yeah. But that cow hunt was pretty fun. That other cow hunt we went on.
It was incredible. It was in October.
Yeah.
And it was the ruddiest hunt I've ever been on. It was crazy.
We struggled to find cows. We had so many bulls.
That's unreal.
Herds would come through. We had giant satellite bulls. And anyway, we're chasing these herds around. We probably had 3 different groups of elk.
We split up because of the 1, 2, 3 experience. Rusty's like, you go there, I'm going here. And you shoot whenever you want.
So he shoots a cow, gets on the radio. Hey, I shot a cow. He's doing his war cry, and then I'm kind of skirting around the hill, and I'm on this different group of elk, and I finally catch up to him, and I could just see sun was in my eyes or something, right? And so I see a cow, and I shoot it, and I get him on the radio. Hey, I got one too. I think it's a calf though, and then we walk up, and that was the oldest cow. I think it was a 16-year-old calf.
Yeah, so I just he was only one group of trees away from me, so I marked where I was, ran over there, and I was like, we'll just work together, quarter his.
It's only
first.
A calf. We can
I was like, we'll quarter real quick, it's just a calf, and I walked up on it, and I was like, dude, that's the biggest calf I've ever seen. And then
the sun was in my eyes.
And then we get looking at it, and I'm like, all right, let's quarter this. And I cut along the back to peel the backstrap off, and the meat was just black. And we look at the teeth, and she's got like nubs. Like there's nothing left. I'm like, Rusty, like you killed a great grandma cow.
Joke's on him because that's the elk he stole from me. That was the freezer. That's the one.
That's the freezer bowl.
Yeah,
dude, that's when we loaded 2 cows in your 4Runner, and I thought we were gonna break through her axle.
We were bottoming out. Yeah.
Everything we hit would bounce off like it was
limiting
bad.
spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You can fit 2 cows in a 4Runner.
Oh, that's impressive.
Oh,
piece
yeah.
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake.
No worries.
I've put an elk in the back seat of a Toyota Camry before.
Wow.
Been there.
A spike elk.
I've had more deer in my Jetta than I think any vehicle I own.
That's just awesome.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
I've got to ask, so you mentioned earlier about elk when they go quiet, and we were talking a little bit about pressure. I want to ask you about that study you had talked about when you collared some elk, but that's one of the things that drives me crazy is you can be up there hunting, and you mentioned Labor Day. You're up there hunting, Labor Day, they're talking, and then they just shut up.
Yeah.
And it seems like you don't hear anything for a week, and it's just always been mind-boggling to me. It's like, what? Shut up. Did a wolf come into the area? Was there pressure from humans? I don't know. Any thoughts? I mean,
I think it's probably, in Rusty, I think it's probably estrus, right? So,
and it could be some pressure too.
Definitely, because elk,
now guys know where they're at, and they're going to make a play on them.
Yeah, and elk that are in high pressure areas are always quieter. You know, they learn quickly. They're survivors. You know, adult survival on elk is in the 90s. Like they don't die if you don't harvest them. They're very long lived. They'll live 20 plus years. Bulls won't live quite as long. Cows will live over 20 years.
And they did a study in Wyoming. What was it? They found that basically your greatest chance of being killed by a hunter when you're a cow elk is when you're a yearling. Mm-hmm. And then the odds of you dying by a hunter slowly go down until you're about 8 years old.
And by the time you're 8,
you're 8, you're pretty much invincible. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're you figured it out.
Yeah. Old elk don't get harvested by hunters. They just
die of old age.
Unless it's me and it's a 20-year-old calf.
20-year-old calf in the sun.
Yeah, the sun was in my
elk
eyes.
They're super susceptible to pressure. They'll repeat the same behavior year after year until they don't. Right? And the thing that can change that behavior could be weather or it could be pressure. Right?
Sure.
And so they're a very smart animal. They adapt to their circumstances. And so elk that live in areas of public land will find deep, dark holes. They'll become more quiet. They'll be harder to hunt. In the private land, they'll exhibit, or private less pressure is what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
They'll exhibit more traditional rep behavior. They'll be louder.
Yeah. Well, see, last year, that was our experience. We're hunting, public land, over-the-counter tag, and we're hearing absolutely nothing. But then I come home and talking to a neighbor who's hunting private ground, he says they're screaming over there. They shot like 3 bulls that same day. And then you hear the guys down the limited entry, your bulls are screaming. It's like, well, wait a minute, what is going on here? Because we're not that far apart. It can't be that big a difference, but you're thinking it's got to be the pressure.
They adapt. They're smart. They're really, really smart. I mean, I was talking about this before we got on the air, but we did the largest collar study ever done on elk in the West in Utah. We were having problems on the Wasatch where we would go fly it in the winter, and we would say, we are way over objective. We have over 9,000 elk here. We're supposed to have 6,800, and we're at 9,200. And by law, we have to make management recommendations to manage to the objective.
So we have to increase permits.
We have to increase permits, increase cow harvest. And we kept hearing that our hunters saying they're not there. We'd go up, we'd do preseason classification, we'd find elk, there were elk all over, we'd fly, there were elk all over. We put one of our biggest critics in a ship with us and took him up and said, and we counted. So when you count elk, you're going to have a sightability index. We figure it's usually 80%.
You're seeing 80% of the elk
Yeah.
that are actually there.
Yeah,
right?
I was curious on that.
And that's under the best winter conditions, right?
Right.
That's under really good snow. So whatever you count, you're missing 20%.
Okay.
Usually your bachelor herds of bulls and things like that that are in more rugged areas. So we fly this. We count the population objective in 4 hours. That unit takes almost 40 hours to fly, and in 4 hours we counted the population objective. Now we picked areas where we knew there were elk,
Sure.
right? But in
still.
4 hours,
Yeah.
and we hopped out of the ship, and I still remember the gentleman walks over to his son. He said, "Who was right, Dad?" He says, "Well, I guess they were." And as we talked, it's not about right and wrong. Maybe we're both right. Maybe we're both wrong. I don't know what's going on here.
Sure.
Let's collar some elk. And what we found is that as we started to hunt them, they became unavailable. And the harder we hunted them, the more unavailable they were. And by unavailable...
So the Wasatch is about 50% public, 50% private.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that before the archery hunt starts, about 50% were on public and 50% of the elk were on private. It's pretty equally distributed. As the archery hunt got going, and I think part of it is probably some of those high elevation seeps and stuff start to dry up, things like that. But it's also hunting pressure, where they start to gradually, where more callers are now on private than are on public. And we saw big spikes after rifle hunts and things like that, where there's a lot of pressure. And by the end of the rifle deer hunt, it was 80% of the elk were on private and 20% were on public.
Wow.
They knew where to go.
Our
And
distribution was wrong.
So we were both right.
Yeah.
There's more elk on the unit than there's supposed to be, but they weren't available during the hunt.
Yeah.
Couldn't hunt them.
Yeah. And the general season deer hunt, which is the most pressure, they're not hunting elk, but it's the most pressure on the unit for people in the field. The day that ended, 10% of those animals the very next day walked back out onto public
The
land.
next day, jumped the fence.
Wow.
The next
Are
day.
you kidding me?
Yeah. Crazy.
And the data showed up multiple years in a row.
Wow.
And so we changed management strategies. We increased the population objective. We pulled back on cow tags, and we started to be very strategic. That's when we came out with the private lands only tags and said, all right, we're going to manage this population objective. We're going to do this a little differently. Some sportsmen were frustrated. Why would the division give this opportunity only on private lands? And the answer was to redistribute these animals
Back on
to
the
where
public.
everybody benefits.
Yeah.
And it's worked. We have good data that shows that amount that went to private every year going down incrementally. It's pretty cool stuff, man.
That's cool.
That is cool.
That's the thing. Elk are just smart, and they're long lived, and they're social, and they figure it out, and they
Real quick,
respond really acutely to hunting pressure.
That's that geeky biologist stuff you were talking about.
Yep.
It's really cool. That's cool. And I think that most of us don't know that, right? Most of the hunters not thinking about that don't know that. Yep. And it's cool data. It's cool analysis. So,
and I guess your listeners, managing wildlife it's tough, and the more you know about it, the harder it is, right? It's really easy to make decisions if you don't understand all the implications. We hear all the time that there's a sentiment among the public, especially for mule deer, that they want us to bolster the herds by not harvesting bucks. And when you understand mule deer biology and understand density dependence and what happens to large ungulates when you have too many males on the landscape, you understand that if you hit a resource limitation, you're going to hurt that population. That you may want fewer males going into winter on the landscape. Fewer males equates to better fawn and doe survival. It equates to higher fawn production. It equates to a more resilient, robust population. But those are things that are really, really hard because as hunters, we want big bucks.
Yeah. And we end up speaking two different languages. We'll have, like you referenced, people say you've slaughtered the herd, when in reality the buck to doe ratio is lower than it has been in previous years. Yeah. And so there's a difference. And I think when people go out and they have a bad hunt, they think the herd is, and in some cases it is. It's there's, and it's mostly climatic factors that drive mule deer populations down.
Weather drives deer, hunters drive elk.
That's it.
Right? When we talk about what affects mule deer, it's weather.
Really?
They need to have enough quality forage to put on enough fat to make it over winter. Yeah. If adult doe survival and fawn survival decrease, populations are reduced. If they increase, populations grow. And there's some magic numbers. You can get into the geeky biology and know what your lambdas are. A lambda above 1 is growing, a lambda below 1 is shrinking. But west-wide survival average, adult doe survival on mule deer is 85%. At 85% adult doe survival and 60 fawns per 100 does, which those are pretty good numbers, you can lose half your fawns over winter, and then you'll come out with a lambda of 1. Not growing, not shrinking.
Just interesting.
Anything above that, you're growing deer. Anything below that, you're losing deer. So if you have adult doe survival, and it's really small percentages start to make big differences. If you're down at 83% adult doe survival, and you only came in at 55 fawns per 100 does, and you lost half of those, your lambda's probably 0.92, 0.93. You just lost 7% of your population.
Wow. And
so you got to start thinking about it in terms of, it takes a lot to make up for that, especially that adult doe survival.
Yeah, just to recover.
And in the past couple of years in Utah, we've seen stuff that nobody ever would have thought. We have units where we had 33% adult doe survival.
Whoa.
Nobody ever thought that was even possible. And the combination of drought and severe winters, it really has the potential to wreak havoc on deer.
There's a unit I hunt that lost 70% of the deer herd in 2 years.
That's it. That's the
wow. That's rough as a hunter.
And
yeah, that is.
And it comes back to, all right, the strongest correlation for deer survival is body fat. Predators and everything aside, the strongest correlation is body fat. Mm-hmm. After that, after they're fat, then you can start to address the other issues. But if they're not fat and you're addressing other issues, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
So fat deer, then you address predators and address other issues on the landscape. Absolutely. That's when you can grow deer. And I prefer to be more proactive. Let's address predators because the climate is what's going to get them fat. We're always doing habitat work. We're always trying to grow deer.
Yeah.
So we address predators now, and then when the stars align, you can have a growth rate of 1.1, 1.15. Deer can really grow.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting.
Anyway.
I like that.
Geeky.
The scientific stuff that most of us don't know.
This is the Elk Junkie podcast, so we'll stop.
Yeah.
But there's, similar things apply to elk, right?
Yeah.
That's why we have this spike hunt. Because if you get your bull to cow ratio too out of whack, then that can be detrimental to the population.
They're less productive. right? So the only way you can manage for as much quality as we do, and on average, with the number of elk we have, we manage for more quality than any state in the nation. Nevada manages for extreme quality on their. They have like 7 elk in the whole state. So no, they got Nevada has a population of, I think it's about 20,000 elk. So
good luck on ever drawing one.
Yeah. But Utah, on average, manages for more quality than anybody out there.
And good luck on ever drawing one.
In Utah.
Pick up a bow, man. Pick up a bow.
Yep.
Look at the draw odds. And I think you can kill a good bull on almost every unit out there.
That's the thing. I've hunted units I've never set foot on before because the draw odds were there.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to hunt. I'd rather hunt than wait for a hunt. That's just me.
And that's what you need to decide. As a hunter, you need to decide.
Do you want an experience? Or
do you want... What do I want? What do I want out of this? Do I want to wait? You can do it. There are people this year that have 25 points and did not draw their elk tag.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
So do you want to wait or do you want to hunt? And we talked about before that there's the social aspect of hunting and the biological aspect of hunting, and they kind of mesh together. Our job is to make sure we don't do something biologically wrong. And socially, we try to manage how the public wants to see their animals managed.
Yeah.
And we try to do both. We try to have
absolutely
quality units, try to have opportunity units, and everybody's got their own preference. There's some guys that are perfectly happy waiting 15 years and then have a giant, 370 bull in their house. And I'm the type, I'd rather have a garage full of raghorns with the chance at a big bull someday.
Yeah.
That's just
I'd rather have 10 300-inch bulls,
I'd rather have 10 200-inch bulls. I just like to hunt. I just like to hunt elk.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay to be either way. I'm not saying there's no right, there's no wrong.
Right.
But I'm with you. I mean, I'd rather have more opportunities to get out and hunt. If I can draw with 5 points on a limited entry unit, still going to be better than some of those over the counter units. And so,
100%.
Super sad about my cooling off period now.
You got a 5-year waiting period.
5 years for you.
So hard.
It's the worst.
So now it's like, all right. So the thought is, where can I get in and get my deer done? And maybe if I get deer done quickly enough, I can go grab a pronghorn.
Let me give you some insight on how much of an opportunity hunter I am. I'm on waiting period for 3 different limited entry species. I just get whatever I can draw and I move on.
Yeah.
Well, if you wait too long, I mean, like for me, I drew this year, so then we'll have the 5-year waiting period, and let's say it takes another 5 points. Let's say that's 10 years away.
Yeah.
Suddenly I'm 55, and then the next time, who knows?
Yeah.
You're 70. Right. So I may only draw maybe one more time in my lifetime. Who knows?
In your hunting career.
You have a finite number of Septembers in your life.
That's true.
Take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Get out.
Couldn't agree more. Something I'm curious about, especially from you guys have a unique perspective, is advice. Anything? What would you tell the general public, general hunters? Maybe advice or lessons learned that you just want to share with people?
For elk hunting?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Yep.
Be aggressive. Be aggressive. Be aggressive.
Go back to the cheer.
Kokomo.
So elk are way different than deer. And my experience is that if you're waiting to have one come to you, you're wasting opportunities to harvest elk.
Yeah.
The more aggressive hunter you are on elk, the more success you're going to have.
The first bull that I ever shot was that exact situation. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'd seen too many videos of calling and the bull coming in, and so that's kind of was my expectation. But this one night, this bull's bugling, and I just stayed there waiting for it, just waiting. It's got to, it's going to come in, and it never came. That night, I was just so mad at myself. I'm like, I've got to start being aggressive and stop this just waiting, thinking they're going to come to me. I've got to be aggressive with them. And the next day, I shot my first bull, and it was a mindset change. And it made a big difference. I couldn't agree more about being aggressive. You got to be smart, but you got to be aggressive.
Be smart, be aggressive.
And I'll say, if you're hunting one bull and you really don't want to bugger him out of the canyon, then you maybe want to be a little more cautious. But the reality is, during the rut, things are so fluid. They're so flexible. Those elk could be here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
the timing of the Utah archery hunt is specifically Like you're catching and you go from quiet bachelor groups of bulls to where'd they go? You know what I mean? You're catching right there. You could have out every trail camera in the world and you're going to hit a point where consistent photos, good bulls, and then they're gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it just
they change.
We see it every year.
Yep.
We see that every year. Exactly what you just explained.
And you could see it the other way too. I find it this way where I've got a canyon full of nursery groups, cows and calves, and I just keep checking on it every couple of days. I go check on it, and then one day you'll show up and they're just not there anymore. And you go, okay, a bull probably came in and pushed them in the next canyon. You walk over the next canyon, and there they are with a big bull. And so you can
ground them up, push them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you, Rusty? Any thoughts on something you'd share?
My advice would be just be adaptable. And some guys, calling is their thing. They want to call in a bull, and that's great. If that's how they want to do it, then do it that way. But the reality is, like you said, sometimes you call them in, sometimes you spot and stock, sometimes you sit water. Some guys like to, just hike miles and miles and miles in dark timber and call. I'm more visual. I like this. Even if I'm calling, I like to see them come in. I want to have eyes on them the whole time, things like that. So I would just say, learn as many tactics as you possibly can and figure out when the best time to employ them is. And you'll be more successful.
Good glass never hurts.
Yep.
Having a spotter is always better than doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And at the right time, having a caller can be really beneficial.
I think sometimes we get we visualize. I'll do that where I'm just thinking, okay, here's how it's going to play out, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here. I'm going to call, and then you stick with that game plan. And if you don't ever adapt, like you said, you're probably going to continue to fail.
Right.
Until you make that change.
If it's not working, change it up.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it only takes the one bull that responds to you to make things happen too. So I don't know. Sometimes it pays off to stick with it, keep going, keep grinding. Other times, I'm just too impatient. If something's not working, I got to change it up.
Yeah.
Well, as Covy was saying earlier about, you almost quit. More often than not, it seems like it's that point when you think it's almost over, it's done, that's when you get your animal. It seems like it just happens then towards the end. I don't know why, but it's just funny how it seems to happen that way.
Yep.
It's totally true.
Yep.
Well, this has been a lot of fun.
It's been awesome.
I've enjoyed it. These two gentlemen are a hoot to hang out with.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to do this one again. So
yeah. I feel there's more stories out there.
I sense it too.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for letting us come out here.
Yep.
Well, thanks for having us. It's been kind of
taking the time from your family. We apologize. It's one more night away, but
Rusty's family doesn't like him anyway.
Yeah.
You're like, kick him out the house.
This is one more day I can't hunt this fall now. Thanks.
Shoot.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having us on.
You bet.
All right. We'll see you, everyone.